Good evening, everyone, and Merry Christmas. It's still Christmas, if in case you weren't aware. Christmas started on Christmas, and it goes all the way up until at least the baptism of the Lord, or if you want to go even longer, all the way up to February 2nd, the Feast of the Presentation. So for us as Catholics, anyway, in our liturgy, we have just begun Christmas, and so I'm happy that you've joined the Shawn the Baptist Show live tonight to celebrate with us for Christmas. Now, some have been asking, where is the morning message? Well, as you can tell, my voice isn't quite right, and I really haven't been feeling well the last couple days. This always seems to happen around Christmas. I, despite my best efforts, try to maintain a nice, steady, balanced life leading up to Christmas, but somehow you do all the mad push to get to Christmas, and then, I don't know, maybe the body just says afterwards, okay, it's here, and tries to relax, and then just gets sick. I don't know. But praise God, I did not get sick before Christmas, and now I'm just, well, I'm adjusting to life after Christmas, and let me get my little set up so that you can see me. It's been one of those kind of weeks where just not really sure if I was going to be able to do a show, but I'm feeling a little bit better this evening. I actually turned down the opportunity to go out and see Wonder Woman tonight so that I could be here with you. So that's how important Shawn the Baptist Live is, and connecting with all dozen of you out there right now. But I thought tonight, as we get into this, I mentioned Christmas movies. I did a lot about Christmas music a while back. I did a whole show on Christmas music live here at the parish, about Christmas carols and such, and that's one of my favorite things to do at Christmas, is to listen to different Christmas music, but I also like to watch Christmas music, Christmas movies, and often movies that have music in them, so it all kind of goes together for me. So I'll give you a little taste here. Back over my shoulder is of course the Christmas manger scene is up, which I put up on Christmas Eve, so that's nice. That my grandfather actually made that for me. It's a little manger scene that is made from sticks from behind his house. And I don't even know if I can blow that up big enough so you can see it there. How about that? Little wooden sticks that came from behind my grandfather's house. And he put it into a little manger scene like that for me. And the straw is straw from my great-grandmother's farm, and then I picked up the little nativity pieces over the years and things. But next to that is a stack of Christmas videos. And that's maybe a little bit what I would like to look at tonight, to, well, get into a little bit of that beautiful spirit of the season that we would, in fact, get from Christmas movies, because I know I certainly enjoy that, and I hope that you will too. All right, so feel free to leave your comments about your favorite Christmas movies. If there's one I don't get to or something like that, let me just say at the beginning here that this season that we're in, I said it's Christmas, and particularly these 8 days after Christmas, what is known as the octave of Christmas, or the 8 days after Christmas. There are 2 octaves left in the universal calendar for the ordinary form, and 3 for the extraordinary form. We've got the octave of Easter is the most important, the octave of Christmas, and the octave of Pentecost in the extraordinary form. But the octave of Christmas is basically we take the big day of Christmas and celebrate it for 8 days, like every day is Christmas. The octave of Christmas is a little bit different than Easter because there's a bunch of feasts that come within the octave of Christmas. So I always like to tell people that, we start with all the beautiful, warm, fuzzy kind of feelings on Christmas with Silent Night and, thoughts of Jesus in the manger. But the very next day after Christmas is the feast of the first martyr, the proto-martyr, St. Stephen, my confirmation namesake. So there's some bloodshed there. And then we get the feast of St. John, the apostle, on the 27th, and they tried to kill him many times, and they just couldn't. So he actually did not die a martyr, but they tried to kill him, so almost a martyr. And then we go to the slaughter of the little babies in Bethlehem that King Herod killed in order to try to wipe out Jesus, the Holy Innocents. And then yesterday we had the feast of another martyr, St. Thomas Becket, who got his head bludgeoned to death with a sword in his own cathedral. So right away after the Silent Night of Christmas, we get to a lot of martyrdom. And I think maybe that's a good kind of balance for especially us as Catholics, that Christmas is not so much a merely sentimental kind of thing, but it represents, as we've talked about here, the really engaging of the battle on part of our God. It says, I'm going to come down there in person and start to fight the battle against Satan. And so that's really what he does. And this is no cute little baby that just is innocent and has nothing. No, this is a warrior who is slipping quietly behind enemy lines, disguised as a little baby. And truly a little baby in his humanity. But in his divinity, also God, who will give the ultimate defeat to Satan and his kingdom. So, not so wrong that we have a bunch of martyrs during this octave week of Christmas. So, we celebrate the octave of Christmas for 8 days. The octave day of Christmas is New Year's, which we'll celebrate as the Solemnity of Mary, Mother of God, in the ordinary form, the circumcision of Jesus, as is traditionally kept, and then we move on for the season of Christmas for another couple weeks until the baptism of the Lord. Then I mentioned that the time really up until February 2nd is still the traditional season of Christmastide. So I put my manger scene up, and I tend to kind of keep it up until February 2nd because I don't get to see it that often, and it's good for us to keep mindful of really what the church calendar gives us as the days after Epiphany. So we're heading up towards Epiphany on the 6th, or sometimes transferred to the Sunday afterwards. And so that's all for us to look forward to in the Christmas season. But tonight, let's get to some Christmas movies, as promised. And I'd be happy for you to comment as to your favorite Christmas movies. But I'm gonna give you some of mine. So let's go to the stack of stuff here. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna start with some historical kind of things. So, if you wanna get into beyond any of the sentimentality kind of stuff, okay, here is one I recommend. It is The Nativity Story. What could be better about Christmas than The Nativity Story? How about that? So this is a dramatized version of the events around Jesus' birth. And let's see, it's not too old. I think it came out less than a decade ago here. Yeah, I don't see it right away on the back here, but I recommend this as a great kind of dramatization. And now anytime anybody kind of dramatizes the life of Jesus, there is always danger that, they're going to take some liberties with this story and things like that. And because, quite frankly, there's a lot about the infancy narratives of Jesus' birth that we just don't know. You have to fill in some of the gaps. I think this does a fairly decent job of showing what it might have been like. Now, it does kind of put things together in that we get shepherds and kings together at the manger. It's not particularly certain that would have happened. There's the Gospel of Luke that talks about shepherds, and there's the Gospel of Matthew that talks about magi. And did they meet each other? We don't know. But you can't have your manger scene. You don't get the money shot without kings and shepherds, so I've already got my kings there anyway. Just in Matthew's Gospel, by the time the magi arrive, it says not that they enter the cave, where we know Jesus was born, but it says they enter the house. And the word used for Jesus in the Greek there is more like a toddler. So, and we know Herod tries to kill all the children 2 years old and younger, so Jesus might have been a toddler by the time the Magi arrive. Not sure. But anyway, at the end of the Nativity Story, you do get the money shot of everybody there, and the Star of Bethlehem, shining down brightly, which we've talked about, we'll get to. So, the other one is not so much a movie as it is the story of the Nativity. This was put together by EWTN, and so it's got Steve Ray, Janet Benkovic, Ray Showman, Tim Gray, Mitch Pacwa, Peter Kraft, Father Tad Baholchik, and Ed Shree. Encourage you, this is not really a Christmas movie or a drama. It's kind of a docudrama, if you will, to the extent that there could be one about the birth of Jesus. So if you're looking for more catechism and kind of things like that, that's a good one. Now this one, The Star of Bethlehem. This has got a lot of play recently here with, of course, Saturn and Jupiter all coming together. This is also not a Christmas movie, as this is a sort of dramatic lecture, if you will, using modern astronomy software to kind of show something of what the Star of Bethlehem might have been. Be sure to check out my homily from Christmas where I talked about this recent great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and could that be the Star of Bethlehem? This Star of Bethlehem DVD with, let's see, it's kind of goes through some of the astronomy stuff. That was it an astrological event? I'm more inclined along the persuasion that it was an astronomical or astrological instead of astronomical. Astronomy being like the physics and geography of the sky, whereas astrology more like the not subjective, but the interpretation of the stars. And that's maybe a little bit more to my liking of what the Magi would have been doing. So you, as a Catholic, do not have to hold that the Star of Bethlehem was an astronomical event or an astrological event or, any natural event. It could just be a supernatural event. They're all different kinds of theories on that. So that's kind of maybe before we start into the fun ones, there's some things you might look at if you're looking for a little bit more on the biblical basis of the Christmas story, as it were. Okay? So be sure to check those out. All right. Now, let's get into some other things here. I'm looking at my stack of stuff. All right. Well, let's just say that there are some other movies that get into more family fun around the time of Christmas. So one of the great classics, and this is parents' discretion advised. I don't remember what this is rated. It's probably PG-13, maybe, I don't know. But National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, famously starring Chevy Chase as Clark Griswold. This is just, you just got to put this in and get some good laughs around Christmas, because our family holiday traditions around Christmas are part of what make the holiday what it is. Family tradition. And this is the story, of course, of Clark Griswold and the Griswold family Christmas that brings to us such beloved characters as Cousin Eddie and his chemical toilet out with his mobile home in the Griswold driveway. Clark tries to make the perfect Christmas for his family by having the whole family together and decorating the house with lights. And for those of us who couldn't have the big Griswold family Christmas this year with everyone together, perhaps a little perusing of Christmas Vacation would remind us that sometimes the big family get-together, it can be stressful. And so maybe this year was a break for you. Maybe you didn't quite need all the stress of the Griswold family Christmas. That is also the famous decorating of the house with lights that covers every inch of the house with lights, and it just doesn't work in the end until it just some of the greatest classic Christmas movie scenes ever. So if you haven't watched Christmas Vacation at least once by now this season, what are you doing? I mean, are you even trying for Christmas? So probably the greatest Christmas humor show ever. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. Every time somebody asks me to say grace, they ask Aunt Edna, the little old grandma, to say grace, and she can't hear anymore, and they're like, "What? They want you to say grace! Grace! She died years ago." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she finally gets up and starts, "I pledge allegiance to the flag." I do that all the time. When people ask a priest to say grace, I will often start leading the Pledge of Allegiance, and it comes from this movie. So there's another great thing from your favorite Christmas movie. So check out Christmas Vacation. All right. How about... well, we've got two of the great kind of animation ones. And that... this is the one that really kind of started it all for me. This is the one that... this is when I knew it was Christmas. Or that Christmas was coming. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This 1950 something, I believe, classic, 50s or 60s. I think a lot of these started in the 60s, actually. It would help if they put dates on there. I forget when Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer first came out, but it featured famously Burl Ives as a talking snowman who sings Holly Jolly Christmas on there. So that's where this is from. In fact, I'm often down in Branson at this time of year, so I know some of my friends are down there right now, or headed there even, and they have Rudolph's little light parade through Silver Dollar City, and they play Holly Jolly Christmas, and it came from that. But if you didn't see my little show I did on Christmas carols a couple weeks ago, one of the kids that was there, because it was a live show, asked about, well, what about Rudolph? What's the theology behind that? And I think part of why Rudolph is so dear here is because... I think we all have that sense of being a misfit sometimes, and, well, do I really fit in? Why am I such a misfit? I am not just a nitwit. Just because my nose glows, why don't I fit in? Yeah, we can all feel like that sometimes. And so Rudolph has that kind of feeling, but in the end, the fact that he's different, well, as God often does with our uniquenesses and differences, God knows how to use them. And so he certainly knows how to use Rudolph's red nose. And Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? And Rudolph saves the day for Christmas. So this is one that whenever this would come on the national broadcast TV, I would know that Christmas time is getting really close because Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is on. So I don't know if it showed this year. See, this is the problem with things being bought up. We of course had the problem with Charlie Brown Christmas that I talked about, that would it even be shown on national TV for the first time since 1965 that it wasn't going to be, and then PBS picked it up, and so we still got a bit. I don't know about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It was always kind of a national start to Christmas for me. And the other one that sometimes goes along with that is Frosty the Snowman. And this the famous song about Frosty the Snowman, we know. The story is, of course, that a magic hat gets put on a snowman, and the snowman comes to life and helps the little kids get ready to celebrate Christmas. Sometimes these shows would run back to back, if I remember right, on TV. So I especially appreciate Rudolph and Frosty together. I admit I have not watched Frosty for a little bit. But the idea that there's a bit of magic in Christmas, and we'll talk about that because that's a reoccurring theme in our Christmas movies, and a little bit what Christmas is all about. These are obviously Rudolph and Frosty are more along the lines of children's shows, and Christmas Vacation more an adult kind of show. Let's face it. But especially for the kids, it's about keeping that magic in Christmas. If you want to experience a lot of the possibility of just thinking, as our Blessed Mother hears from God, nothing will be impossible for God. And I think sometimes we want to limit God to the concrete, tangible, scientifically provable, discernible things that are more easily explained. Christmas is not so easily explained. This is the day we celebrate that God, who has no material principle, took on our human state and took on a human body and became fully human. That is not easily explained. That is a great mystery. It is a Magnum Mysterium, as I talked about before, from the office of Matins. So we'll get into that a little bit more because I really like this idea of mystery in Christmas. In fact, all right, so Christmas mystery. Here's a Here's a double feature that I got, and I watched both of these yesterday, actually. Yeah, what do you do when you're kind of sick and you're going to quarantine yourself to your room? Well, you watch Christmas movies and sleep and drink coffee. So I got a double feature of The Polar Express and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So if there were to be a third one with Frosty and Rudolph, How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss is another famous one. That one of the great lines that I love from How the Grinch Stole Christmas is, this is the story of how the Grinch, like a lot of people, well, he just doesn't like Christmas. And for whatever reason, and the show is really cute. It's like, we don't even know. Maybe his shoes were too small. No. But they thought in the end, well, maybe it's just because his heart was 2 sizes too small. How sad. So the Grinch actually tries to come and steal Christmas from the little Who's down in Whoville. And he thinks he can do it by taking all their toys and their trees and their presents. And he takes everything that he can get his hands on. But then he is surprised to find that on Christmas morning, despite having been robbed of all the material possessions of Christmas, the Who's still come out and they sing their welcome Christmas Who song, that it's still Christmas and they're still thankful. I think that's a great lesson for us in 2020. Not how the Grinch stole Christmas, but we might be inclined to think how COVID stole Christmas, because maybe we didn't have some of the material, worldly things that we normally have, even good things like coming together as family. But when the Grinch has his moment of conversion, it's when he comes out and he says that he begins to realize that, well, maybe Christmas can't be bought in a store. Maybe Christmas means a little bit more. I think that is just an incredible moral to that story. That the Who's, even though they lack all their material things they would normally have for their great Christmas celebration, including their feast, they still were thankful. And yeah, I did a little morning message a couple days ago on the the pop tune, Do They Know It's Christmas? Do they know it's Christmas time at all? It was done in '84 to raise money for starving people in Africa, was basically the deal. And it's kind of lamenting the fact that in Africa, there's no snow for Christmas. So will they even know it's Christmas without snow? All right, yeah, they will. But they also lament that, well, there's poverty in Africa. So will they know it's Christmas? They don't have gifts or even enough food or water. How will they know it's Christmas without all these material things? Well, much as the little Who's found out in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Christmas doesn't come from a store. It means a little bit more. And so even people in great poverty, yes, they know it's Christmas, especially in Africa, where there are millions of Christians. It's one of the fastest growing places of Christianity. The whole southern hemisphere is where Christianity is really growing. So yes, they know it's Christmas time in Africa. Maybe not even just in spite of poverty, but sometimes because of poverty. Little Jesus came as a little impoverished baby. So the more we know we need God, I think the more we know it's Christmas and the more we know we need it. So yeah, don't tell the Catholics in Uganda and Nigeria and the cops in Ethiopia and such that they know it's Christmas. And now the Grinch knows it's Christmas too. And the real meaning of Christmas is, of course, that Jesus is here to be the thing that saves us from any attachment to the things of this world, including good things like all the Christmas decorations and stuff. And the Grinch had such a conversion that he actually carved the Christmas roast beast. I love that. Now, back to the magic of Christmas. Polar Express. I will say that I love the music in Polar Express. It's one of those, a lot of times when you do Christmas movies, you create apparently some great music to go with it. And that's obviously Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is based on a song, and Frosty the Snowman. But Polar Express has some of the cutest, best little, probably new Christmas music that was written for a movie. And I love just kind of the magic of the Polar Express theme. I go down to Branson. They got a new Christmas tree last year. They put up this huge Christmas tree that's like 6 stories tall. The old one was only like 4 stories or something. I don't know. But one of the sets that it plays is from Polar Express, and it's just this. It's a magical kind of feeling from Polar Express, and that's really where the whole premise of the Polar Express movie is one that's we'll get to when we talk a little bit also about this one, Miracle on 34th Street. The two of these, Polar Express and Miracle on 34th Street, what they have in common is there's a little bit of a doubt as to whether Santa Claus exists. And certainly in the Polar Express, the little kid that is having some doubts, he gets to take a magical ride on a magic train on Christmas Eve to go to the North Pole and meet Santa Claus. And it's amazing. And one of the beautiful kind of examples in this is he gets the first gift of Christmas that year is a bell from Santa's sleigh. And the bells are such that you can't hear them ring if you don't have faith and believe in Santa Claus. And so in the beginning of this, when the reindeer are getting all their bells put on, the little kid, he's a doubter. He doubts Santa Claus, even right there in the presence of Santa Claus. And so he can't hear any of the bells. But as he meets Santa Claus and is given this first Christmas gift, he can hear the bell. And it actually winds up back with him on Christmas morning, and thanks to Santa Claus, and throughout his life. As people got older, they couldn't hear the bell anymore. They stopped believing. But this person who's now older, and as the narrator, remembering this Christmas Eve journey on the Polar Express, he can hear the bell his whole life. And I think that's something special for us to remember, that this magic of Christmas, it's not just about Santa Claus, but the idea that there is something beyond just what we can see in this world that is easily explainable. How does Santa do all the things that he does on Christmas Eve? Well, it requires a bit of magic. And people would maybe poo-poo that today and say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, if ever there was a world that's needing to have its horizon expanded a little bit, I think that's ours right now. Because whereas maybe it's not specifically doubting Santa Claus like others, we doubt that there's any kind of world we can't see. The only thing we believe we can't see is like dark matter, but we know it's there. But other than that, if it can't be scientifically proven, it doesn't exist. What a sad and impoverished world to live in, to think that. The Catholic Church invented the whole scientific method because we knew that there's much more to this world than can be seen, but by looking more closely at this world, we can start to grasp through the visible the world that is invisible. If you've been listening at Mass, the prayer right before the Eucharistic prayer, the preface, says, may we be caught up through things visible in love of things invisible, something like that. That we need to think about the possibility of, not just the possibility, but the reality that there is more to reality than simply what we see. And so I would hope that little bell of the Polar Express, as it were, could ring for all of us when it comes to the truths of the faith. Now, Miracle on 34th Street, similar problem, except in this case, the little girl who was not doubting Santa Claus, but a bunch of big people were doubting Santa Claus. Well, she gets to famously meet the real Santa Claus, Kris Kringle, and again, find out that he is real. And if we've talked on this show before, too, about St. Nicholas, the namesake of Santa Claus, Nicholas. Very much real, defended our Lord Jesus Christ at the Council of Nicaea and punched the heretic Arius in the nose. So, a very real person. So, some of these things are, a little take on, do you believe in Santa Claus? Oh, so Joyce Grosco says that Polar Express is her favorite. I had, and Lisa says Little Drummer Boy as well. I had not watched Polar Express in quite some time. I pulled it out yesterday, because what else are you going to do when you're sick? I needed a little magic right there. And Polar Express, for those that haven't seen it, it's animated. Tom Hanks does most of the voices for a lot of the characters. It's just a nice... How old is Polar Express? I want to say 2004, maybe something like that. Yeah, you would think they would put the copyright dates on the back of these to make it more easier. I'm going to say, yes, Polar Express, 2004. So a little bit more of a 2004, like, oh, that's a recent one. I'm like, God dang, that's 16 years ago. Holy cow. So check out Polar Express or Miracle on 34th Street for a more classic one about do you believe in Santa Claus kind of movies. Those are a good genre there. All right, back to the stack of stuff. Okay, here. My favorite modern day Christmas movie that I just watched today. Elf. This is hilarious. So fun. Gets the Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf is just, well, it's Christmas Vacation is still my all-time just flat out favorite comedy Christmas one. But Elf, it is funny, but I don't know that you could really say that it's exactly just a comedy. I mean, Christmas Vacation is basically, National Lampoon stuff, so it's basically comedy. Elf has just got this sweet meaning about what it means to be family on Christmas, and the best way to spread Christmas cheer is by singing loud for all to hear. I love Zoe Deschantel and Will Ferrell in this together, and it's just this cute little kind of love story couple too, and who can be a part of your family at Christmas. And I love the New York stuff. I love the city of New York, so this is set in basically New York, and so there's a lot of kind of inside jokes and plays and humor, even right down to the Central Park Rangers and things. So essentially the premise behind Elf, if you've not seen it, is that Buddy as a little baby is adopted, or was going to be adopted, except he crawled into Santa's sack on Christmas Eve and got taken back to the North Pole. And so he does in fact get adopted by an elf who doesn't have his own child at the North Pole, and he's raised as an elf. And then eventually he comes home to New York to find his real dad. And what a great kind of pro-life sort of message behind all this, that Buddy the Elf turns out to be not wanted by his real father, and then it turns around and has just one of the happiest endings ever. And it's another one of those do you believe in Santa Claus movies, because Santa shows up, and we know he's real from the beginning because he is the reason Buddy's off at the North Pole. So if you're looking for a laugher for the whole family, it's Elf. Christmas Vacation is pretty funny for the whole family, but you have to watch a little bit of the language in there. Elf is just, well, everybody should see Elf. It is probably the modern Christmas classic that, well, most people in my family I know watch Elf every year. I think we all have our own copy of Elf. So, yeah, be sure to check that one out. Okay, let's, I've mentioned, since we're on kind of, I'm gonna throw one in here that I watched 2 days ago. This is one you may not have heard of. I'm gonna throw it up here. This is called The Christmas Candle, and it's a movie based on a book by Max Lucado, the great Protestant author. If you've been to any kind of a Christian bookstore, you've likely run into many books by Max Lucado on there. And so, yes, that is also Susan Boyle from the singing competitions, who got discovered and then became a very famous singer. This is her first acting debut. The Christmas Candle, it came out in 2014. It was the focus on the family. 2014 plugged in Reader's Pick for Best Christmas Movie. So that got my attention. This is not exactly a Hallmark kind of movie. And by the way, I'm sorry, I don't have any Hallmark Channel Christmas movies in my stack because, well, you can watch them on Hallmark, and I really haven't got into that genre much. But this is a little bit, I suppose, like some of that. The Christmas Candle is, again, one of those Christmas magic kind of shows. And this one, it's not about Santa Claus. It's about an actual Christmas angel who has come on Christmas Eve once every 25 years to a candle maker shop in a town in England and blesses a Christmas candle. And whoever gets this Christmas candle is to light it and pray, and they get a Christmas miracle. And so it's like once every 25 years on the first Sunday of Advent, the angel comes and blesses a candle, and then the person prays all Advent, and on Christmas they get their wish. And so it's repeated several generations, and now it's about a kind of down on his luck pastor who comes to the town, and he doesn't quite believe anymore. He's sort of lost his belief in the magic of Christmas and doesn't want to have anything to do with this, what he thinks is superstition around some, fake miraculous candle. And so it's kind of the story of how he sets about to bring Christmas to his new little town as their pastor, and how the Christmas candle comes to save a bunch of people and the whole town. It's got a great, I think, kind of religious message behind it, as you would expect from Max Lucado. Nothing, it's a Protestant-based book, and it's, a Protestant setting, Church of England, but nothing, any objectionable to Catholics or anything in there. So it's a great little story, and I am moved, particularly as I look at kind of the struggles of the minister in here, because he really kind of loses his faith. He tries to do something great for his town, and in the end, it just turns into a big disaster. And he really thinks he's blown it, and everything is a mess, and it's just never going to be good. And he tried so hard, and it just doesn't work. It turns out that, in fact, God does something great. And so maybe the minister should calm down a little bit, because it's not all on him. God has got things under control, and that's an important thing that I need to remember. And it's another one of those great things that believe in miracles. And this one, it's not believe in the magic of Santa Claus. It's believe in the magic of God to send his angels and answer our prayers. And that's a real struggle in this one. I think a lot of us at Christmas and throughout the year struggle with the idea of, why does a good God who's all powerful allow bad things to happen? And certainly that's been the case this 2020. I was hoping at Christmas, we could all hope that, maybe there'll be some kind of a miracle. God could help fix this. And lots of people are putting their hope in, New Year's Eve, tomorrow night, that when the clock strikes midnight, that 2020 will be over and magically things will have to get better. No, they don't. I mean, they could actually get worse. But the truth is that life is suffering, and there's no way out of the suffering. And this Christmas candle kind of shows how God is at work even amidst the suffering. And as we like to say, he always brings about a greater good. And certainly we can see the good amidst the hurt. And there's real hurt in this movie. And then there's great good. So isn't that the message we all need to hear at Christmas? So if you're looking for a religious, but not overtly Nativity Story, we're going to read the Bible to you sort of one, this is quickly becoming one of my favorite religious Christmas shows. I watched it now a couple years in a row, even with my family for the first time last year. All right, speaking of religious Christmas, I got to throw out, which is going to be one of the, well, if not the, it might be one of the best well-known Christmas TV shows ever, and that is A Charlie Brown Christmas. I mentioned it earlier when I said, that it always aired on CBS every year since 1965, and it got bought up this year by Apple, I think, or something. And so it wasn't going to get shown. But PBS finally got to show it, and I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, I got to watch it with a family whose little son was watching it for the very first time. So that was sweet. And I say religious because, quite frankly, the greatest religious television moment, I think, of any Christmas show comes in A Charlie Brown Christmas, where poor Charlie Brown is stuck in commercialism, much as we saw with the Grinch, thinking that maybe Christmas comes from a store. How many of us still think that? And of course, Charlie Brown does not think that. He doesn't like the commercialization of Christmas, and he wants to find what Christmas is really all about, and he just can't seem to. So he finally asks his trusty friend Linus, isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? And Linus steps on stage, like, sure, Charlie Brown, I can tell you what Christmas is about. And then he quotes the gospel reading from Midnight Mass, from the Gospel of Luke, about the birth of Jesus. That is evangelization right there. Good job, Charles Schultz. Good job, CBS, for airing that every year. It's not Christmas without A Charlie Brown Christmas, and it's not Christmas without that story of Jesus. And of course, it's not just a story. It is the reason why all these Christmas movies, everything exists. All this magicalness of Christmas is meant to put us somehow in touch with the greatest magical, mysterious event ever, that God would become one of us. So I'm sure you've seen A Charlie Brown Christmas by this point, but I invite you, think about how magical that moment is, that every year on national TV until this year, we've been able to be told this is what Christmas is all about. I sometimes I put up stuff on my Facebook page, and people will try to want to shoot down that this isn't a Christian country. We have to be equally representative of all faiths. Well, without getting on a soapbox too much here, people don't realize that the very fact that you could stand up and say something like, this isn't a Christian country, I'm an atheist and I want to be an atheist. Go study how atheist countries have fared in the history of the world. People are like, oh, religion starts more wars than it. No. The greatest death and bloodshed ever in the history of the world has always been atheist totalitarian regimes. Everything from Hitler to Pol Pot to China and Mao Zedong, and you name it. It's always been atheist. Here in America, you have the right to say things critical of our country because of Christianity, the dignity of people. And you just have to go live in another country where there's not Christianity to understand, and then come back and say this isn't a Christian country. Not saying it's going to be forever, but Charlie Brown reminds us what Christmas is all about, and really the foundation of what our country is all about. Something we could all easily agree on before. The fact that the United States embraces all people of all religions as citizens does not mean that the majority of Americans aren't Christian, or that our heritage isn't based firmly on Christian principles and values. We are. And to some extent, the fact that you could even question that just shows how Christian our country really is. Go try questioning the story of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad in a Muslim country. See how far that gets you. Or, even just such things as question the state in the time of various monarchies and things. We're blessed in this country, and those blessings come to us from our Christian foundation. So that's why Christmas is a very, very important part of our country. You don't have to celebrate Christmas, but, even if our political leaders want to publicly lead us in the celebration of Christmas and not other religious festivals, because the majority of people in America are Christian, that's fine. the idea of separation of church and state has been way blown out of anyone who ever wrote lines like that ever had in mind. Either we're going to be a nation under God, or we're not going to be a nation at all. So anyway, enough of that little soapbox. Let's go back to funny. I don't even know this existed, but A Dog for Christmas. I Want a Dog for Christmas, Charlie Brown. So if you're looking for more Peanuts, not nearly as famous as the Charlie Brown Christmas, but I Want a Dog for Christmas. Okay, another little kind of animated one. This is going to get us into the realm of Muppets, because my favorite Christmas movie of all time is coming up. But let's first look at A Muppet Family Christmas. This is another one of those great stories of family gathering for Christmas. What could be better than a Christmas family gathering? And so the Muppets are a bit of a family, and they gather for Christmas. And it is just a hoot, because, well, they're not sure if they're going to be able to make it. And, of course, Kermit is anxious for Miss Piggy to arrive, and they're all gathering at Ma's house, and will there be enough room? And there are people hanging off the wall, and it's just, for those that are used to big family Christmas gatherings like I was growing up, this is a great kind of little family Christmas movie. So I recommend A Muppet Family Christmas, Jim Henson, and another great Jim Henson one. This one you might not be familiar with, but Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. You gotta see this one. It's awesome. It's got some great music in there. Ain't No Hole in the Wash Tub. River Bottom Nightmare Band. The grass does not grow on the places where we stop instead. River Bottom Nightmare Band. It's incredible. Yeah, it's a great little story about a widowed otter and her little orphan, well, not orphan, but her little son without a father. And much as that kind of gift of the Magi story, where they go out and sell the things most precious to them to get gifts for other people, well, Emmett and his mom both end up doing something similar to try to have a good Christmas. And in the end, they find out, like the Grinch, like everybody else, that Christmas is, well, it's not just about the material possessions. It's about family and friends and Jesus. And that's what really matters. And what better could we hope for than some otters and, well, a bunch of other cute little Muppet animals. Which brings me to my favorite Christmas show movie. No surprise here. The Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, this is Jim Henson and his Muppets, their take on the famous Charles Dickens Christmas novel, A Christmas Carol. What I love about this is not only is it just delightful, the way the Muppets portray everything, it uses so much of the actual lines from the book that half the time when I start quoting Charles Dickens, I have to think, now, am I quoting Kermit the Frog saying that, or is that actually in the book? Or both? Because most of the time, if I want to remember what the book says, I go back and I'm like, well, how did Miss Piggy say it? Or something like that. And it's just great. And the soundtrack to this, I love the music. I listen to it. And while I've got the Muppets up here, let me throw up two other versions of A Christmas Carol. We can talk about A Christmas Carol in general. The first is the George C. Scott one from 1984, I believe. This is kind of the classic. George C. Scott, famously Academy Award winner for playing Patton. He plays Scrooge. What a great role for him there later in life. So that is an awesome one. And then a bit of a newer one is Disney's A Christmas Carol. So check that one out as well. So we've got three versions of A Christmas Carol. The George C. Scott classic one, Disney's Christmas Carol, and then my favorite, the Muppet Christmas Carol. And I've preached Christmas homilies just on Scrooge, so I'm not going to completely rehash that. You can go out and search ShawnTheBaptist.org for, Christmas Scrooge homily and get that. But I will say that the story of A Christmas Carol is one that just keeps coming back over and over, and it is timeless. Charles Dickens wrote that in the 19th century, and it is just as relevant today. You've got Scrooge, who is, he's in need of conversion. He, like the Grinch, doesn't like Christmas, and we don't know. Eventually, we come to see, whereas with the Grinch, we're like, well, is our shoes too small, whatever. We get kind of deep psychological on Scrooge, that he is hurt from his time as a child, being abandoned by his own parents, family, never really having the love that he needed. I mean, gosh, how many of us can't see past hurts that have, propagated throughout our lives, our families, and continue to wreak havoc even in our own lives? Why is Scrooge such a Scrooge? Well, because he was hurt. He doesn't make merry at Christmas because he never had a Merry Christmas, at least not very often. And it was normally a sad time. And so he's just kind of content to keep living in a sad time himself. And so he makes other people's lives sad. And isn't that just the case that a lot of times people who are, putting sadness all over the place, why? Well, because their lives have been sad. And so it just keeps going. The great kind of truth about the story of Scrooge is that it doesn't have to keep going that way. If sad and hurt people and make them sad, when does it end? Well, we see that it ends with a stroke of God's grace. In the Christmas Carol story, it's Scrooge's business partner, or in the case of the Muppet Christmas Carol, Jacob and Robert Marley. Yes, that would be Bob Marley. Come back, and the hecklers help Scrooge to understand that his pain, he's inflicted it on everybody else, and his life is not going to end well if he doesn't change. And so it's kind of a stroke of God's grace. He's given the gift of, again, the supernatural. 3 spirits, 3 angels, if you will, the famous ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future, or Christmas yet to come. And these 3 angels or spirits really help Scrooge to see, the pain that was there in his childhood, the pain that he's causing other people right now, but then the possibility that he doesn't want things to stay this way. He wants them to change, and he begs that they can change. And that is the great lesson of A Christmas Carol, that things can change. We can change our decisions, no matter how much we've been hurt, no matter how much our families have been a mess, and we're stuck in it. Through God's grace, we really can make a new start. And so that's why we love Scrooge on Christmas morning. He is transformed overnight from bah humbug, and I wish everyone who went about with Merry Christmas on their tongue were boiled in their own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through their heart. Now that's a happy Christmas message. Well, that same person on Christmas morning, it said that if anyone knew how to keep Christmas, Scrooge knew how to keep it best of all. And that's because he learned how valuable it is to have a chance to start over. And I do hope that you got a chance to get to confession this Advent season, get that beautiful chance to start over in God's grace. My homily from this past weekend on Holy Family was all about reconciliation, especially amongst family members. We all want a chance to start over. So if there's someone you need to be reconciled with, just do that. Scrooge had a lot of people he needed to reconcile with, and he did it, and his whole life changed. And so that's the great kind of Christmas hope, I think, from A Christmas Carol. All right, another great one along those lines, It's a Wonderful Life. Jimmy Stewart. This, a lot of people considered a flop when it came out. Again, it's not about the Christmas story. It's about what happens around the season of Christmas. And of course, George Bailey gets a supernatural gift the same way Scrooge did. George Bailey thinks that his life is worthless. So he's kind of on the opposite end of Scrooge. Scrooge doesn't realize his life is worthless when it really is. George Bailey's life is not worthless, but he thinks it is and doesn't realize what a value it is. So George Bailey gets the gift that is an incredible gift that is, again, supernatural. He is sent an angel by God who intervenes, and God grants that George Bailey would get to experience life as if he had never been born. How many times have we wished, like, I don't want to be here. It would have been better if I'd never been born. Well, George Bailey gets his wish. And on that Christmas night, Clarence, his angel, second class, because he hasn't got his wings yet, shows George around. Like, this is what it would be like if you'd never been born. His brother doesn't go off to be a war hero and save a bunch of people because, well, George saved his brother's life when he was drowning years earlier in their childhood. And Mr. Gower, the druggist, got in trouble for poisoning someone with a snake because George wasn't there to stop it. And George wasn't there to bail out the building alone. And so evil Potter took it over, and Bedford Falls, he gets to see, as Clarence says, George, you really had a wonderful life. I think maybe that's a good message for us this Christmas as well, that it's easy to focus right now on the downers, things that maybe aren't going so well. Well, in the end, we've really had a wonderful life. So much so that I don't know when the life is going to be over. These days, I'm ready anytime. I'm cleaning out my room a little and organizing stuff and making sure everything's in order. I don't know. I could get COVID and die. I could get hit by a reindeer or something. Who knows? But make sure that you're living today, and you end every day by thinking, you know what? I've had a wonderful life. It might not be going well. And believe, people that know me and the things going on in my life this right now and over this last year, like Father Shawn, you're going through so much. Yeah, it's true. And we're all going through so much right now. I get it. But I ought to be able to end each day by saying, it's a wonderful life. And if it ended now, I could be thankful for all the good that's happened. And thankfully for probably for me and you and for George Bailey, life goes on. And he got to live a life showing how thankful he was. Pop in a little musical plug here. Mannheim Steamroller. I love the music, but they did a little video. And they put some video to their music several years ago. And so if you've been to a Mannheim Steamroller concert, they show this, some of the videos that they did, and they put it on a DVD. So this is kind of nice to have on in the background at a Christmas party or something. All right, we'll end with a couple, I guess you'll call it modern ones. Some not quite so modern. A Christmas Story. Yeah, this is another one where you just end up quoting from it. Double dog, triple dog, daring. How many times do I say, I got a major award? I got a major award. Yeah, this is just darling, delightful, Little Red Ryder, BB gun, all that. Licking a flagpole. Yeah. Again, kind of the family Christmas kind of thing. The 20th anniversary documentary was in, what year is this? 83. Christmas Story is 83. So 1983, A Christmas Story. And finally, one of the great musical collaborations for a Christmas movie, Home Alone. This is, of course, the famous John Williams score to Home Alone. That one of my favorite ways to see this, when it hit its 20th anniversary a couple years ago, all the symphonies were staging where the symphony would play the score live, because it's an orchestral score by John Williams, who did the music for like E.T. and Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, things like that. The music to this is incredible, and the story is just great. It's like It's a Wonderful Life. What would happen if you've never been born? Well, little Macaulay Culkin in here has, what if I could get rid of my family? What if I could make my family disappear? And so he gets his wish when he gets left home alone for Christmas. And he comes to find out that family is actually a pretty good thing. And I think maybe I'll end with that one tonight, as it is striking 7:30, to say that all of us maybe we're experiencing a little bit of Home Alone this Christmas. Because, well, let's face it, we didn't oftentimes get together this Christmas. We were home alone, some of us, or at least home, not at home, or home with very few people. We got maybe a gift this Christmas. We don't have to wish, like, what if I can make my family disappear? How many times have we said on Christmas morning with all the commotion and trouble, oh my goodness, this is a disaster. I just wish it would all go away. Well, this Christmas we maybe got a bit of our wish. What would it be like if we had no big family gathering for Christmas? What if we just had quiet for Christmas? Well, I think there is a subtle kind of niceness to it. I enjoyed having time to pray. But then you do kind of miss the whole big gathering. And I fortunately got a little bit of it with my family, still a bit of a gathering. But let's not take anything for granted. George Bailey took his whole life for granted. Kevin McAllister took his family for granted in Home Alone. Scrooge took everyone for granted. And in all cases, Christmas was a time for them to readjust their sights. To say, no, wait a minute. Like the Grinch who didn't get Christmas, he adjusted. Like Linus helped the whole world adjust to see what Christmas is really all about. Whatever differences COVID has created for you this Christmas, I pray that the end might be a gift that you would know what Christmas is all about and how special all those other things are, like our family, our friends, and especially our faith. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down Christmas movie memory lane tonight. I'm still not quite feeling so well. I hope to be doing better by tomorrow night and for Priest Gaming on January 1st. But in the meantime, I'm going to plow through that stack of Christmas movies because they sit on my shelf, and there's some really good messages in those Christmas movies, and I pray that you've picked up on some of those tonight. So thanks for being with me. I will try to get back to the morning message more regularly now that I've got my voice back. Pray for me and my recovery, not COVID, just the normal seasonal cold and flu stuff. But I'm going to enjoy having a Merry Christmas for at least another couple weeks, and I pray that you do too. Get out those movies and see what God might do to change your perspective this Christmas. Good night, everyone.